After 3 decades of fiercely holding sway over the people of Malawi, Hastings Kamuzu Banda is forced to bow out. Spectres of political times past come back to haunt the Italy of today. Searing temperatures scorch the Indian state of Rajasthan as the region bakes in a record-breaking heatwave. Also in Roving Report, a Turkish treasure hunt to track down some of the lost relics of the nation's heritage. Voters in Malawi campaigning earlier this year in their first multi-party democratic elections. The landlocked South African Republic's 9.7 million people are among the world's poorest. But the change they clamoured for was above all political. An end to 30 years of a one-man dictatorship. At this United Democratic Front rally, party leader Bakili Muluzi, now state president, caught their mood.
We are promising the people of Malawi change. Change.
Malawi, once a British protectorate called Nyasaland, achieved national independence in 1964. From then until this year's watershed elections, it's been ruled by the Malawi Congress Party, or MCP, of Dr. Hastings Kamuzu Banda, an unashamed dictator. Human rights groups say thousands of his opponents were killed or disappeared. Kamuzu, here in regular dark three-piece suit and hat attending celebrations for his birthday, gave himself many titles, including Black Cock, Master of All Women, and Ngwazi, or Conqueror. He also had himself declared president for life. But international economic pressure at last forced him to allow multi-party elections. And on May 17th this year, the country's 3.7 million voters wasted no time knocking Black Cock off his perch.
So that this country can prosper.
Aleke Banda is a leading UDF member. Like many others, including the new President Muluzi, he was once a prominent supporter of Kamuzu.
Me support.
We have lived for 30 years under the one-party state, a rather oppressive system, to a multi-party state, a democratic system, in which we are guaranteeing basic fundamental freedom. This country is basically agricultural. Now we must pay a lot of attention to agriculture, provide incentives to people to grow crops, improve pricing, make fertilizer accessible, make the people acquire fertilizer at reasonable prices. And of course, we must attract into the country investment so that they can create jobs for as many people as possible.
But the promises of politicians did not convince everyone that the elections would be free and fair. In some places, bribery was alleged. But United Nations monitors seemed not too dissatisfied. In the event, Kamuzu Banda and his MCP lost virtually all support outside his tribal heartland, central Malawi.
MCP! 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 We want Kamuzu! We want Kamuzu!
At his 1994 birthday celebrations, numbers were much lower than in previous years when his paramilitary young pioneers were allowed to terrorize non-party members into attendance. The army has now disbanded the pioneers, and many of the young thugs have fled the country. In Kamuzu's police state, it was a crime even to discuss his age. Officially, he's said to be 90 or less, but many now say he's 95 or even older. Last year, he underwent brain surgery in South Africa. He's said to depend on steroids and anticoagulants. Later on Banda's birthday, 40,000 opposition UDF supporters flocked to hear Muluzi make his final speech before the elections. The man destiny chose to oust the despot was in confident mood.
You can delay change, but you cannot stop it.
And he knew how to woo the crowd.
Politics is not about last year. Politics is about today, about tomorrow.
He promised clean water, better housing and free schools. But his support too is regional, mainly in the south. On the eve of polling, Kamuzu's MCP parliament met to approve an interim constitution that curtailed his sweeping absolute powers and legalized the historic vote that was to follow. One member urged caution.
must introduce measures to reform some of our social injustices, if there are any. Because some of our so-called social injustices are tribal customs that can't be just watched or brushed under the carpet. So we've got to be very, very careful.
Also on the eve of the poll, the army took precautions against possible violence. One place that needed a special guard was where Banda held, tortured and executed many of his opponents, Zimba Central Prison. The enthusiasm of Malawi voters for their first free elections rivaled that of South African blacks less than a month before. Queuing began at 2 a.m.
Well, there's a change in Malawi. To me, this is what we've been fighting for a long, long time.
There were two polls, one to elect a president from among the 4 candidates, the other for members of parliament.
It's really exciting to see this change that's happening here.
But old habits of discretion persisted.
What is your prediction?
Thank you. No comment.
A campaigner was asked if the vote would improve things for women.
Well, definitely with the referendum question, a lot of women did get to feel the power of the vote and the power of their voice, especially if it is a unified voice. So women have been sensitized, and I believe they are going to take part in the running of the affairs of government.
As votes were counted through the night, anti-Banda feeling grew bolder.
Who is going to save the nation of Malawi? Hastings Kamuzu Banda. He's a traitor, a dictator, man. We are tired with him. We don't want him anymore.
2 days later, it was all settled. UDF leader Muluzi would replace the dictator Banda, and his party would have more seats in parliament than any other. Outside UDF headquarters, his supporters were irrepressible. It was day one of Malawi's Second Republic, but with the hopes of millions resting on him, the party's leader was doubtless pondering his own words. Politics is not about yesterday, it's about today and tomorrow.